Good evening, everyone. Um, not Might not be the sharpest video in the world. I am feeling incredibly ill. I don't know what this is, but I've never had this before. This is something different, and I'm just so unbelievably out of it right now. It's just not even. It's just crazy. I want to talk about um, the new Earth again in a different way, and you go there. It's paradise. You live happily ever after, correct? Not for everyone, but because that's what they choose. And they choose that for a reason. Because the universe is about being selfless. The nature of true love is about being of service. And there are certain souls who go through a process, and it's a process that is akin to a sort of selection or initiation in which they are chosen to actually go back in time, in some cases our time, and in other cases 2050, 2080, whatever the case may be, and they go back in time for a multitude of different reasons. Um, Primarily being um, one of the main reasons is that if there is a family member that, for whatever reason, got stumbled in his circumstances, and that lineage further down the line did not make it to the new earth, but they're related genetically to this particular family that wants to bring them there, then it's their job to go back in time to alter very minuscule circumstances, akin to something like the butterfly effect, which could potentially alter the outcome and actually reverse course, literally reverse the actions that were taken to where they, in that timeline, now end up where they currently are on the new earth. And I know that's confusing, but the only way to think of it is fuse all time together and think of it all as one. If you think of it as separate things, you're not going to understand it. Um, so, and this is entire lineages in some cases, and they're particularly interested in the souls that were experimented on in the brain, um, the silver pods, the virtual reality systems, the souls that were fractured. One of the main goals is to prevent certain souls from ever going into them, to prevent that fracturing process, so that that timeline would not be tethered to the fractal arcane realms, which would permanently link our um, reality to that realm, to that broken realm. Um, so, and the interesting thing about it is that even though Earth's population will be decimated, um, the elites now, they even know now what family lineages are going to survive and make it into the future, um, and actually end up either in the underground cities or in the silver pods, in the eggs. And there's potentially some cases of even some people being destroyed in the black hole, in extreme cases. But like I said that before, I do believe rescue will be conducted to stop everyone, every single soul, um, including possibly even some of the fallen ones from the Crystal Garden, to receive that horrendous fate, essentially. But so they already know through our bloodline that this is why they're mapping everyone's DNA right now through the Jabberoonies and everything, because they could tell into the future after the great solar catastrophe and all of the things that will happen later on, who is going to survive and who they can genetically experiment on to create more monstrosities, to create more sort of these chimeras that they wish to create. And there are certain people that they will stop at nothing to save their lives, to save an entire family unit, to save that entire specific bloodline so that it could make it into the future. They will go out of their way to do it. And here's the catch. This is where things get really weird. The people from the New Earth, and by the way, you know many of them are incarnated here in our current moment, 144,000. I'm sure you heard that number before. It's not a special privileged group of people. That is just the people that are already from there who are tethered to that realm and are going back inevitably no matter what, right? So, um, and basically, I did talk about how in some instances some soul groups are here, will return to their alien homeworlds as well after the permanent separation takes place. And some of these time travelers go back in time to try to convince certain soul groups so that they wouldn't go back, so that things would not turn out in a way that they go back to their alien homeworld, but rather be with them instead. Is this manipulative? I don't think so. Um, I just think that it's a part of a rebalancing act. Um, there's going to be a lot of residual trauma left over from current events here. Even now, even before all the super crazy stuff, you could tell, guys, that the world is falling apart. You could tell, you could just feel it, you know it, you feel it in your gut, and you know this is just the beginning. And that residual trauma will be left over even on the new Earth. And um, basically, think of it as a geometric um, hypercube, right? Let's say, for example, this hypercube has some missing links to it because of residual trauma. In order to perfect that pendecagram or whatever shape it is that's going to be the primary consciousness of the new Earth, in order to perfect that, they actually need to go back in time to alter certain things, to fine tune the frequencies to further shield themselves from things like the fractal arcane realms and all of these negative influences so that they're permanently cut off from them as well. Even though the initial separation is permanent, there are still effects lingering in the next world, nonetheless. So some of these souls from the New Earth, they they do the opposite. This is going to sound sinister, but think of it from their perspective. Instead of saving certain family lineages, they actually try to take them out. Yeah, you heard that right. Like, how is that loving? It doesn't seem loving at the moment, does it? It seems ridiculous. You take a person's life. Well, if it's the only way that their bloodline could actually transmute their consciousness into new Earth, then that is what has to be done. And that those are the same genetic bloodlines that will be used for creating monsters and breaking down souls. These virtual reality machines will shatter a soul. It will. It's not about forced reincarnation. This is what people don't understand. That is not the main point of the virtual reality. The virtual reality is to fragment and create infinite fractals of a soul so that it remains tethered to that trauma, okay? And then it's going to spend a lot of time trying to fix what's being done. And they need help. They need help because remember, they're trying to escape through these fractals. They're creating mazes. The beings from the Fallen Garden are creating mazes to literally escape Christ, right? Christ, the one who is responsible for the initial permanent separation and closing the black hole, and essentially for the creation of the new heaven and the new earth. The mysterious one we call Christ is the one responsible. He is the lead master soul responsible for this to take place. Okay? Give me a second. Anyway, it's a little bit of a complicated process, okay? When you talk about time and you know why it has to be this way, and they could go back over and over if it doesn't work. Some of these souls they can reincarnate over and over to our current moment, um, until that one particular soul, whether it's a change of mindset that they need or it's a change of heart, whatever the case may be, they won't give up on that soul. They won't give up. And it will literally alter space time once that little butterfly effect change is made. And that soul is now with them on the new earth. And it's actually a beautiful thing if you think about it. Um, and how the spirit whose time is altered, how they experience that transition, I don't know if it's literally like reversed. It's a little bit confusing to me as well. Or if that's just sort of erased from their beingness and they just suddenly find themselves on the new earth. I don't know how the process actually works, but I know that the intention here is selflessness and love. And these people, they do challenge themselves, okay? They build things. I saw a group of people on the new earth, very tall people. Sorry for that background noise. Told them to be quiet, but it never works, so I'll just have to whatever. Um, Literally running up this super steep mountain, and they're running and running and running and running up this super steep mountain, like almost at a 90-degree angle. And they didn't stop until they got to the top. And I mean, we're talking about something like the size of Everest. And they keep themselves in incredibly good physical and spiritual shape, and they work on themselves. This is not just, a place of total laziness. It is a place of peace. It is a place of comfort, and it is a place of abundance. But it's not a place of laziness and wasting time. No. So, having said that, that's why there is a sort of um, selection. A selection is a term used for people in elite military groups. Well, this is sort of like an elite military group. They're selected, and then how they're selected, the first thing that they do is that they would place them outside on this sort of bed-like structure, and there would be a group of people um, around them with these large Tibetan-looking singing bowls, and one of them, I mean, very large, like these are very large drums, and one would hit one, and it would create a frequency, and the person would be laying down with their eyes closed. The frequency would actually create a physical light that you could actually physically see, and it would beam into their brain as they lay down. And then the next person, they would do the same, and so on and so forth until the man or woman is encircled by this group of people who are basically now they tethered through that act of the frequency ringing. They actually tethered their own mind with that person's mind. They're now synchronized together into one. And what's the point of this? The point of this is that they need to find out how strong this person's mind is. So what they would do was that they would meditate on certain situations, and then they would beam that frequency into the initial person's mind, for the purposes of seeing if they would um, become lucid and aware of this. So at this point, they're now sleeping, and they have to wake up in this dream, and they have to alter and become lucid of the situation that's taking place. And the faster that they become lucid, the better their mental state is, and the greater chance that they have of becoming essentially um, recruited for this sort of specific type of mission, in which they will go back to our current moment. And other tests take place, other sort of cognitive tests, meditative tests, physical tests, um, uh, tests related to frequency and sound and interpretations of sounds and sights and all sorts of things related to your senses, but they have more senses on the new Earth. Okay, there's not five senses. There's probably 20 or more. So all these senses are hyper tuned. They're hyper trained until they reach almost a perfected state, and then only in that case um, are they put in a sort of suspended animation state. Remember how the fallen crystal garden, the people who are trying to help Lilith essentially uh, get out of the demise that she's in, and they're in a suspended animated state, and so are these New Earth people. Um, the process is really interesting. It also is very much related to frequency and sound, and how they go about it is that similar to like the Tibetan-looking bowls, they instead have some other strange contraption. I don't know how to describe it. It's just really strange looking. It almost looks like a rock, but it's not a crystal, but it's not a rock. And they would put him in a specific location, like in either a structure or they put him in a cave. And I saw both. I saw this white glistening building, beautiful building, almost like a Mormon looking temple. I don't know why. And the other one was a cave. And the basically the selected person would lay down, go to sleep, and then these rocks would start beaming different oscillating harmonics, right? And these harmonics would initiate a state of astral projection. Um, and that soul is then guided in such an interesting way. And it's really similar to Anubis and Horus and the being on the boat of Anubis, because I saw something really similar to that. Um, I saw now this soul is on a journey on a river, and it's this beautiful, pristine river with this beautiful boat, and he's there with a guide, and the guide just they swim forever on this river, forever and ever until they see our Earth before them. I literally, it like literally ends up being like space, and that they stumble upon our time if that's where they chose to incarnate into, and then they're born as a human child and live out a life that's much shorter and much crappier than their own on the new Earth. And time is different there too, so don't forget that. Um, it's hard to say. Like sometimes I think it moves faster there, but other times I look into it and it feels like it moves slower. I sometimes really can't distinguish. Like with the Crystal Garden, it was clear that time moved much faster. So like thousands of years here, it would be like a few decades there, but on the new Earth, it's not so clear. It seems like a combination of both, and time is a lot less relevant to what we're experiencing here. And so, in summary, um, many different reasons. There are certain events that can be stopped. They can't. Um, the elites and the fallen Crystal Garden people, they think that it's all 100% set in stone. They're going to get their nuclear war. They're going to get their solar flash. They're going to get whatever they want. To them, it's set in stone. To the New Earth people, it's not set in stone. The only event that is set in stone undeniably, that nobody can alter no matter what, is the solar flash and the Earth, the transition of the Earth. Those two things are going to happen 100% with no chance of not happening. But they can mitigate certain things. They could go back in time, alter certain things to make it less traumatic. For example, I do believe that there are some of the incarnates from the New Earth who are trying to prevent a nuclear war. I do believe that. As much as the elites believe it's set in stone and inevitable to them, to others it's not inevitable. It depends on who you ask. You see, that's the confusing thing about all this New Age teaching all these years. It depends on who you ask, because it's both true. It depends on what you mean. So that's what I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. And Basically, it's just something to think about. Um, you know, you could be one of them. So don't minimize your life. Don't minimize your life. You could be from there. You could be helping a lot more than you even realize, you know? And it's important to value ourselves in that case and try to do the best we can, as hard as that is. And I know it's hard. So that's all, guys.